Welcome to CivilNet. My guests today are Vahan Kololian and Ani Avetisyan. Welcome to CivilNet. I'd like to introduce the both of you to our viewers. Vahan Kololian, you are a longtime friend, but you're also a Canadian-Armenian businessman. You are the chairman of the Mosaic Institute and the founder of the Kololian Foundation, which we will get to in just a minute. And Ani Avetisyan, you have a very long title, so I'm going to read it so I don't say anything that's not correct. You are the manager for international relations of the Institute of Economics and Business at the Russian-Armenian University. So our viewers would probably want to know what a Canadian-Armenian businessman, chairman of an institute and founder of a foundation, and Ani Avetisyan are here together for. Vahan, you created the Kololian Foundation in Toronto, Canada, and you are here in Armenia because you helped to realize a research paper called The Depopulation Crisis in Armenia with the Kololian Foundation. As we know, the demographic situation in Armenia is one of the most critical and pressing problems that we face, and your foundation decided to help finance a groundbreaking paper, which is going to be presented tomorrow at a UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund conference that's going to take place tomorrow. Vahan, could you tell us why this particular topic was important for you?
Well, firstly, Maria, thank you for having me as your guest, and Ani, it's great to share the podium with Ani. What we have done so often as Armenians from the diaspora is, while we rejoice in the fact that today we have an independent Armenia that we all wanted for many years, is that there is perhaps a level of criticism directed at Armenia, which, while it may be accurate, while it may be warranted, I and my family felt that it was appropriate to have some research done here in Armenia. It's not as, how shall I put it, impactful when we fly in for a week's vacation and then go back and you know, wag our finger at Armenia. We thought that the best thing we could do is to provide some funding for four research groups, 2 think tanks and 2 universities, to provide the expertise in doing analysis of the demographics and depopulation of Armenia. So this started about a year ago.
That's right, and you were here at CivilNet about a year ago talking about this initiative.
Correct.
And today we've come full circle because the research has been conducted, the paper is now ready, and it will be presented tomorrow. As a diaspora Armenian living thousands of miles away, there is a level of engagement that you have with Armenia and with its future and in the sustainability of its future. Do you see yourself continuing that engagement with Armenia? How has this experience been for you?
Well, you know, it's still early days. I mean, I'm not alone. Clearly, many people have done some great things in Armenia, both local Armenians, Armenians from the Russian diaspora, from North America. As a family, we've supported some individual initiatives, but we have not entered the policy area as this project does. And in answer to your question, will I remain engaged? I'd like to think I will, but the important thing here is that we provided the funding and the research has come from the expertise of our local partners. We joined hands with ICHD, International Center for Human Development, who helped us select the 4 research groups. And it was based on the quality of these research groups that we feel we have supported the preparation of a first-class piece of research.
And talking about the research, Anijan, I'd like to talk to you about that if I may. As I mentioned earlier, the paper is called The Depopulation Crisis in Armenia. There were 4 groups that took part, 4 individual research teams, think tanks that took part. They included the Russian-Armenian University research team, which you belong to, the Research and Business Center of the Faculty of Economics at YSU, which is the Yerevan State University, an independent research group of professionals in Armenia, and the Yerevan Foundation. Could you tell us a little bit about the process, how you conducted your research, what were some of the most important findings that you think are going to be impactful, to use the words that Mr. Kololian just used? Yeah.
First of all, I would like to say that each of our groups covered one of the points of migration. For example, our group of from the Russian-Armenian University, look at the economic side of migration, some law issues, social issues, etc. One of our groups look at the problem of depopulation of Kashata, for example. So there are chapters in this research which makes the research whole. We tried to highlight all points, all reasons of migration, and find any solutions with the help of example of Israel, for example. Right. There is a good case, good practice for our country because we have some similarities with Israel, and we can find good solutions for the problem of migration in Armenia.
And taking Israel as a case study, as a nation like Armenians who have a vast majority of their population living outside of the proper country itself, are those things feasible for Armenia today? Could Armenia, for example, have a state policy of repatriation? Looking at it from the opposite side now.
Here is the main problem. Israel's government could find solutions. They cooperate with the diaspora. They cooperate indeed. Our diaspora doesn't make a lot of investment in our economy, for example. And there is ways to find any solutions on the state level to make diaspora, to make investment in Armenia.
But is it only about the economic point of view? Is it only about making investments, or is it about also engaging or connecting on other levels as well?
Any kind of investment brings with itself social culture, maybe low culture, etc., etc. So it's not just the economic point of view.
You know, I was interviewing a political analyst a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this very issue. And because it is today probably an issue of national security, when we see the figures, especially following the global financial crisis of 2009, we're seeing those numbers increasing. And labor migrants now not only leaving seasonally, but now taking their entire families and completely sort of closing the book on Armenia and moving away. And so I asked him, I said, so in your opinion, what is the solution? And he said, to repatriate, not only Armenians from the traditional diaspora, but to create conditions in the country that would allow those who have left since independence, post-independence, to find possibilities or ways to return.
We should understand that migration is a consequence of the not sufficient quality of life. From the recent years, we have a tendency that people are looking better quality of life, not just the standard of living, not just work or high-paid job. Yeah. People are looking for human rights protection. First of all, property rights protection, which we have a low level, quite level low of property rights protection. Corruption, through democracy, rule of law,
social justice.
People, we have a tendency, during our research we highlight this tendency. The higher is wage, the bigger is the willingness to emigrate. So people not only need a lot of money, people need something better, something social changes, mental changes. We have some psychological problems as well.
So as we can see, Vahan, the issue is not purely economic. As you know, first impressions are, well, you know, the standard of life is low. They don't make enough money. They can't afford to send their children to proper universities. So now we're seeing that it's no longer where in the first years of independence, where the vast majority left, it was purely economic. But today we're seeing these issues. I just want to ask you, maybe this is a very unfair question to ask, but I want to ask you as someone, as a diasporan Armenian who is engaged, as I said earlier, how does the diaspora help to build those institutions to strengthen rule of law, to ensure the protection of human rights? Does the diaspora today have a role to play in these very serious issues that we're facing today in Armenia?
Well, my short answer to your question, does the diaspora have a role to play to build institutions in Armenia to support democratization, open society, rule of law? The short answer is the diaspora has a role to support the development of such institutions, but I'm a great believer of grassroots contributions and grassroots movements. So no, it has to come from within. And one of the things that this research paper shows, done by the 4 groups, is that in Armenia, there's actually a lack of cohesive opposition. So Armenia, as a democratic state, needs to get its act together. And that means that democracy, you can't say you're a democratic nation just because you have elections every 4 years. That doesn't cut it. It must have democratic participation of communities daily. I would love to see the diaspora play a role, but I think it must come from within, and the diaspora, of course, can support that.
Right. Which is what you're doing with your initiative. And just as a final question, again, we always talk about the problems, and we know the problems. We're looking to find some practical, applicable, feasible solutions to the problem of the depopulation crisis today in Armenia. Based on the research that you did, based on the final paper that was produced as a result of these 4 research teams, which will be presented tomorrow at the Marriott Hotel in conjunction with the UNFPA conference on the demographic situation. What are some of those policy solutions that this paper is offering?
Finalizing our research, we developed some recommendations in the different fields of our life, economic, social, legal, etc. And I especially want to mention, for example, education, field of education, and law, judiciary, because there we have some problems. First of all, we have the big lack of legal consciousness in the population. Our population doesn't know its rights, its own rights. And so if you don't know our rights, we don't require anything. It's one of our problems. Here is a problem of government transparency. We now have electronic government, but this information doesn't reach to the people in villages, for example. They do not have access to internet. They do not
know how to use a computer.
Do not use computers, do not see TV, maybe, why not? So one of the solutions is to give information to all of us, to the population as a whole. How? During the mass media, newspapers, education in the schools, etc. Concerning the education, we have one problem here, one big problem too. Our education does not connect it with the labor market. Our specialists cannot find a job because there are a range of problems. So one of the solutions is to develop
philosophers than plumbers, for example.
Yes. For example.
Yes. Yeah. So our education should be connected with the business sphere, first of all. There are a lot of recommendations in the field of repatriation also. We have some recommendations for the Ministry of Diaspora to how to cooperate with our diaspora, with our repatriants from Syria and other places.
Well, for those who are interested in seeing the paper, there's a website, www.depop.am, Depop coming from depopulation, so they can go, and I'm sure that in the coming weeks and months the website will be providing more links, more information, hopefully some discussion, because if we don't talk about the issues, then we can't find the solutions to them. Vahan, just in closing, did the research paper that your foundation funded, did it meet your expectations?
Well, I'd like to give you a conditional response to that, if I may. The fact is that the quality of work done by the 4 groups is very high quality, and I'm very impressed with the quality of the academics at the 4 organizations. So in terms of the quality of research and the way the recommendations and analysis has come together, I'm very, very pleased, very proud of it. In terms of where we go from here, one of the things that's available with the paper is a brief letter that I'm addressing. I'm saying this is not meant to be all-inclusive. There are still so many other related issues that are still open. And that's where the website comes in. So in answer to your earliest question, which was, do you expect to remain engaged? The engagement, I hope, because it's very easy, you know, sometimes you have these wonderful bits of research that are done, and then they sit on a shelf. We said, no, we have to give this continued life. So we're very hopeful that having struck a website, www.depop.am, will enable us to continue, and it will have a chat room. It will have the ability of those who are interested in this area of research to participate, to critique what's been done, to come up with new ideas. It's meant to be an idea exchange.
Right, which is the most important thing sometimes, creating those platforms to exchange ideas.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Vahan Kololian and Ani Avetisyan, and thank you for watching CivilNet.